Okay, so I started in CoDA in 2006 when my partner left me. A friend of mine told me about CoDA, and I attended as many meetings as I could. I kept going to different meetings until I found one that felt like home. I feel a much deeper attachment at face-to-face meetings than Zoom meetings, but if Zoom is all I have, then that is good enough. I was looking for a meeting which felt safe, without feedback, comments, or gossip. After many years, I realized that a healthy group conscience leads to a healthy meeting. Eventually, I found a room with plenty of fellows where I could hide out. They were speaking about the kind of recovery which I wanted. I could identify with them. I could see where they started and that they had got to a place where I wanted to be. When I started, I thought CoDA was just a support group. But after a while, I realized that people were actually changing by working the steps. I started to share myself. I started to go out after the meeting to talk to the members that were in the meeting. I talked to them about working the steps and finding a sponsor. I realized that I thought I wanted a sponsor who could fix me. Eventually, I realized I wanted a sponsor who would just share their journey. I started talking to people I identified with after the meetings. Most of them were already full with sponsees. But eventually, I found someone who was free. I started working the steps with him. He was very supportive until I started doing service on the different committees. He suggested that I wait until I finished working the steps, but then drop me when I didn't stop. I completely agree with him now. I suggest that my sponsees only do the service in their meetings while they're working the steps and save the committee work until they finished all the steps and traditions. I found that when I was ready to work the steps, I could find a sponsor. When I was stuck or resistant to working the steps, then I would find it hard to find a sponsor. I've heard many people say it's hard to find a sponsor. However, I know many or several fellows who would be good sponsors, but they haven't been asked. I myself gently refuse sponsors who I perceive as not being willing to change. I ask for a commitment of time from the sponsee and a regular meeting time. I use the sharing guidelines as a basis of my sponsorship. And now I have calls with equal time, 5 minutes for myself and for them alternately. For me, a sponsor now is someone who can share their own experience, strength, and hope about how they work the steps. I'm also in a step group, and my step group has outlasted all my sponsors. We meet every week and support each other in working the steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your perspective as a sponsor and as a sponsee.